G'day. I reckon most Australians will have some idea of the colonial atrocities that took place in those killing times in colonial days down here on Palawa country, Lutruwita. But I come across a story in the past couple of days travelling around Tasmania that really, to me, hit home at just how bad things were for Palawa. This story is about a young girl named Martina. She was born Mary on Flinders Island at Waibelena, the mission. Those Aboriginal people that survived those killing times were forcibly removed and taken on this horrible cold island. Martina was born in 1835 and she lived there for 6 years, taken off her family at birth. It was the second child they lost to the missions. She was then at 6 years old adopted into Hobart. The governor of the day, Sir John, and his wife, Lady Jane Franklin. They adopted her not to love her as their own, but to teach her to be a good little white kid. Their idea was she'd be a curiosity. They wanted to prove to the white society that they could, civilise one of these wild blacks. They spent a whole year dressing her up and teaching her English, parading her around at high society functions. She was treated like a real freak and curiosity. There's this horrible painting. She's painted in this beautiful little red dress and you can see the sadness in her eyes. After a year, just over a year of living with their family in Government House, they're called back to England and they take all their worldly possessions with them. They even take young Martina's favourite doll, but they discard her. They leave her in Tasmania, discard her like a piece of rubbish, no longer of any value. They dump her in the orphanage in Hobart. She grows up between two worlds. She's never going to be accepted into white society. That was never the point. And she grew up, not knowing the Aboriginal side of her family. She was taken back to the island at one point. All her family had died. She ends up dying at the age of 17 years old. She was found drunk, face down, drowned in a puddle of water. It's about as bad as it gets, and to me it speaks to just how horrible this colonial history was. The fact that not only were people massacred and murdered by our colonial ancestors, the idea that they cared so little about this young girl, about another human being, that they would just discard her like a piece of rubbish, of no value anymore. It's so important we don't forget these stories, because it's how we got to where we are today. We can't walk together hand in hand into the future unless we come together acknowledging the horrors of the past. It's not about blaming anyone. It's not about feeling any sort of personal guilt. It's about remembrance and walking together into the future. The extraordinary thing is Palawa are still here today. Descendants of those people from Flinders Island are still here in Tasmania. And the amount of knowledge they've been able to retain is extraordinary, despite all the odds, despite all the best efforts of those colonial ancestors. They're still here, still looking after country, still passing on that knowledge. Now it's up to us to remember this story and never forget the name Martina. Really tragic stuff.